My name is Mia Torres. I'm a detective in the quiet town of Willow Creek, where until recently, tranquility reigned. Everything changed when the local supermarket became the scene of a series of inexplicable disappearances. It started with the employees. First was Dave, the friendly cashier who always had a smile for the customers. He simply didn't show up for his shift one morning. Management thought he might be sick and didn't think much of it at first. But when he didn't return home that night and his colleagues couldn't reach him, alarm bells started ringing. Days passed, and others began to vanish in the same manner. Sarah, the night shift manager, and then Sam, the stalker who always stayed late to organize the aisles. They all disappeared without a trace. No security camera footage captured them leaving the building, and there were no signs of violence or forced entry. I was called in to investigate. I arrived at the supermarket the morning after Sam's disappearance. The atmosphere was eerily quiet for a place that should have been bustling at 9 a.m. Customers avoided looking directly at the empty aisles, as if sensing something amiss in the air. I spoke with the remaining employees, seeking any clues that could shed light on the disappearances. They all seemed nervous, their voices hushed with fear as they told me what they knew. Reports of swift shadows seen fleetingly on the security cameras during the night, moving silently between the shelves. The mystery enveloped me like a thick fog. What was happening in this seemingly ordinary place? The answers lay hidden in the depths of this supermarket, waiting to be uncovered. I knew my investigation would lead me down dark paths, but I couldn't imagine how deep these mysteries would go. This was just the beginning of a journey that would take me beyond the boundaries of the reality I knew, towards a terror lurking in the shadows of well-lit aisles and fully stocked shelves. As I advanced in the investigation of the disappearances at Willow Creek Supermarket, the customers' reports of nighttime sightings began to intertwine disturbingly with the mystery I was trying to unravel. A week after my arrival, I received a call from Martha, a frequent customer of the supermarket. She had something important to share with me, something she didn't want to discuss in person. We met at a local cafe, where she began to tell her story with a look of dread in her eyes. Martha worked as a caregiver for the elderly and often passed through the food sections of the supermarket late at night, after her long shifts. She had a fixed routine: grab a coffee and stroll through the aisles, enjoying the quietness that only the night could offer. But in recent weeks, something had started to bother her. She began seeing shadows, swift as lightning, moving in the corners of her eye. Sometimes, they looked like human figures, other times, something indescribable and terrifying. She tried to ignore them, attributing them to fatigue or her imagination. But the sightings became more frequent and vivid. On one particular night, Martha stopped near the frozen foods aisle to rest for a moment. That's when she saw it clearly, a dark, tall, distorted figure moving swiftly between the shelves. The face was indistinguishable, but she said the eyes were like two glowing coals, fixed on her for a moment before disappearing into the darkness. Martha hadn't returned to the supermarket since. She was convinced that something sinister was happening inside, something beyond human understanding. These reports sent shivers down my spine. They echoed the rumors I had heard from the employees and strengthened my determination to uncover the truth behind these inexplicable events. What was causing these visions? Could it be possible that the disappearances were related to these shadowy apparitions? My mind was now open to possibilities that I would have once considered absurd. Whatever it was rooted in the depths of the supermarket, lurking among the shadows of the empty aisles. I was about to enter territory where the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred, and I was determined to confront whatever I found there. As I immersed myself further into investigating the disappearances at Willow Creek Supermarket, the unsettling accounts from customers about nocturnal sightings began to eerily weave into the mystery I was unraveling. I arrived at the supermarket the morning after Sam, the stalker, vanished, determined to pursue any lead, no matter how obscure. I met with Mr. Peterson, the manager, a nervous man who avoided meeting my eyes as we discussed recent events. He was visibly shaken by the disappearances of his staff, and his responses were evasive. I meticulously inspected the areas where the missing employees were last seen. The aisles were tidy and brightly lit, yet an unsettling atmosphere lingered. I interrogated the remaining employees about the security systems, cameras, and logs of entries and exits, but their answers were inconsistent and incomplete. Deciding to scrutinize the security footage from the night before Sam's disappearance, I was unsettled by brief glimpses of swift movements and dark shadows in the aisle corners. They were too fleeting to discern clearly, but enough to heighten my suspicion that something sinister was unfolding beyond normal perception. While scouring the administrative offices, I stumbled upon peculiarly incomplete records and scattered employee files. What seized my attention was a file labeled "Hidden" in the manager's computer system. With bated breath, I opened it to find encrypted documents and blurry photographs. Hours were spent deciphering codes and reconstructing the timeline of the peculiar occurrences plaguing this place. I encountered vague references to ancient rituals and customs, recurring terms like "gateway to the beyond" and "guardians of the shadows." The deeper I delved, the clearer it became that this supermarket was more than a mere commercial space. It concealed something ancient and malevolent, awakened by eerie rituals conducted by a secretive sect seeking power beyond human comprehension. My pulse quickened as I braced myself to delve deeper into this labyrinth of secrets. I could no longer ignore the silent warnings from the shadows and the vanished. I was on the verge of facing a challenge that would test not only my courage but also my understanding of the reality I thought I knew. As I delved deeper into the hidden secrets of Willow Creek Supermarket, the revelations grew increasingly disturbing and sinister. After uncovering encrypted files and mysterious documents in the manager's system, I knew I was dealing with something far beyond my usual detective experience. Strange terms like "gateway to the beyond" and "guardians of the shadows" echoed in my mind like a dark echo from a distant and obscure past. I decided to investigate the underground levels of the supermarket, an area rarely visited by staff and even more avoided by customers. With the reluctant help of a security guard, I descended a narrow staircase that led to the forgotten corners of the building. What I found down there sent chills down my spine. A dark room, illuminated only by flickering candles, revealed strange marks drawn on the walls and floor. Ancient artifacts, macabre ornaments, and dusty books were arranged in a ritualistic manner. It felt like stepping into a shrine dedicated to entities I dared not name. In the center of the room, I discovered an altar with remnants of melted wax and stains of dried blood. It was clear now that the supermarket was not just a place of commerce, but a seat of power for an occult sect practicing dark rituals to summon forces beyond human comprehension. Shivers ran down my spine as I photographed the evidence, knowing that every step deeper into those underground chambers increased the risk of encountering something irreversible. Back on the surface, I carried a weight in my heart and a sense of urgency. Whatever was happening in this supermarket could no longer be ignored. The occult sect was conducting rituals here, awakening forces that should remain dormant. And now, I had to confront the dark truth lurking in the shadows of well-lit aisles and fully stocked shelves. My mind wrestled with the implications of my findings. Who were these guardians of the shadows? What did they want? And most importantly, how could I stop something that should not exist in this world? The boundaries between reality and nightmare were quickly fading, and I was about to face a challenge that would test not only my courage but also my sanity. I was determined to unravel the mysteries plaguing Willow Creek supermarket, even if it meant confronting the supernatural that seemed to be at the heart of it all. Armed with the information I had gathered from the supermarket's underground chambers, I began connecting the dots between the disappearances, the eerie sightings, and the occult rituals. With each step, I felt a mounting pressure around me, as if the very shadows were watching, waiting to engulf anyone who dared challenge their domain. I decided it was time to confront Mr. Peterson, the manager, directly. I needed clear answers about what he knew and his involvement in the inexplicable events haunting the supermarket. The meeting was tense, his words were vague and evasive, but his eyes betrayed deep fear and guilt he could barely conceal.
"You don't understand,"
he murmured, his hands trembling.
"They've been here long before us. We can't stop them."
His words echoed in my mind as I pressed on with the investigation. Increasingly, I found myself surrounded by signs of a malevolent presence manifesting through inexplicable and terrifying events. The shadows became more tangible, moving at the edge of my vision, whispering in voices I couldn't comprehend. One night, while reviewing security camera footage, I saw something that made me freeze. A dark, distorted figure materialized in one of the aisles, its eyes glowing with a light that didn't belong in this world. It was one of the guardians of the shadows, and I knew I could no longer ignore the threat it posed. Armed with sacred objects and protective symbols, I prepared for a final confrontation at the heart of the supermarket. I knew I was about to enter territory where the laws of reality were distorted, where fear reigned supreme, and where the price of discovery could be my own sanity. At the peak of night, I found myself standing before the altar where the rituals had been performed. The air was thick with ancient, malevolent energy, and the shadows danced around me as if eager to envelop me in their icy embrace. With a mix of determination and fear, I began reciting banishing words, challenging forces beyond my understanding. The air around me seemed to solidify, an oppressive presence rising against me. I fought with all my strength, each syllable spoken with fervor and intent. For a moment that felt like an eternity, the world around me seemed to freeze. Then, the shadows slowly receded, dissipating like smoke in the wind. I had triumphed, at least for now. As the sun began to rise, I looked around the silent, deserted supermarket. The disappearances had ceased, and the atmosphere of fear hanging over Willow Creek was beginning to dissipate. But the scars of that experience would stay with me forever. I had faced the supernatural and emerged on the other side, but I knew the price of discovery had been high. The true nature of what I had encountered, and whether the shadows I banished would return, were questions that would haunt me for the rest of my life.